Can you hear me? Okay. I think we're a small group here, so maybe we can be a more kind of personal. So on the basically I prepared this talk a little bit about me. I started a company 3 years back, Measured Search Inc. On my personal side, I've been working with Lucene since 2001. I've been tinkering with Lucene. Solr came out, built faceted navigation before even faceted navigation was there, and kind of Solr came out. So I've been kind of working on all that kind of stuff. Various incarnations of search kind of tools and technologies and stuff like that. I personally work and live in Los Angeles, and I've kind of been there for a vast majority of my career. And I graduated from Hillsdale. So from a personal side, I've done a lot of deployments, a lot of installations, built platforms, built teams, primarily around search or search-based applications. And that's kind of my background. A little bit about kind of what we do. I don't know how many of you know what we do. Have you guys? We're part of the sponsors here. I don't know if you guys have a chance to kind of stop by the booth, but we provide search infrastructure and management solutions. So essentially, people who are using Solr, who want to move to the cloud, what we do is we pretty much provide software and services to help them take kind of Solr and automate the entire deployment process, help them manage Solr in any cloud environment, as well as scale it from there. So that's kind of what we do from a software and services perspective. We do it both in private clouds and public clouds. Primarily, majority of our customers actually are in public clouds, but we're starting to get into customers that are actually going into private cloud. We're headquartered in California, specifically Manhattan Beach. We have a global team. We have we have employees and in all over kind of the world, Central Europe, India, West Coast to East Coast, pretty much everywhere. We support follow the sun support. We provide 24/7 service for customers who like us to manage their search environments. And we have a core development team that's also spread out that works on kind of orchestration and management platform. We work with a bunch of public companies, bunch of private companies. They kind of rely on us to run their infrastructure, manage their infrastructure, and utilize the tools and software that we provided to gain visibility within their environment, both from kind of a security perspective, management perspective, and auditing perspective. So that's kind of what we do. That's a little bit kind of what company does. So today's talk is primarily around kind of not more so kind of how we help customers, but more kind of behind the scenes as to what we do internally, what our software, kind of how our software really manages these Solr deployments for various customers, for various deployments across kind of different cloud environments, whether that's AWS, Azure, Google, or any other cloud environment. And give a little bit overview of that, and then go into the background of how we do monitoring, how we do analytics, what kind of infrastructure have we put in place, how do we kind of do all that, and then kind of leave a little bit open room for any questions you guys have around that. So what's happening? What's out there? Everyone's kind of the data center world. Every company, whether that's looking for saving money or whether that's looking for going faster time to market, is actually moving from a kind of data-centric kind of an approach to a cloud-centric approach, right? They're going from a physical hardware or physical infrastructure to a virtualized infrastructure, whether that's utilizing the public cloud available through these vendors, or building in-house cloud virtualization platforms that they can use to deploy, manage, and develop new way of developing applications and deploying them. So that's obviously happening. That's kind of there. It's inevitable. Everyone kind of suggests that. Data growth from a search perspective, in the last couple of years has tremendously increased, right? And earlier people used to be like, oh, my data can fit in one server, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four. When you go nowadays, people are going from people say megabytes of data to kind of petabytes of data, right? I mean, you're talking about data lakes, you're talking about all these kind of things. And what we're seeing now is people who used to run 1 or 2 or 3 Solr servers are kind of going to tens of servers, managing tens of environments, hundreds of clusters, and in some cases there are even tens and hundreds of these servers around kind of different data centers, different geographic locations. So the problem that you kind of get into from a search perspective is, as soon as you go from 1 or 2 or 3 to a tens and hundreds of servers, configuration, management, orchestration, and kind of how do you do all that kind of stuff becomes a real challenge, right? There's a lot of time and effort that goes into managing that search infrastructure. It becomes a non-trivial problem, right? It's no longer, I've just set it up and forget it. In a cloud environment, the challenges that we face is servers can go down anytime anytime that you're not aware of. There's an email AWS can send you saying that we're degrading the server, so you got to adapt to that, right? So there's a constant time that is involved by your team that is being spent on managing your search infrastructure that takes time. And then on top of that, think about the time it takes to make sure that this entire infrastructure is backed up. There's proper recovery in place. How do you make sure security, you're compliant with your security division? How do you make sure indexes are secured? How do you make sure you're not you're monitoring each and every individual of these servers? And are you getting proper diagnostics to kind of predict the problems that you're going to have in the next few days or weeks or months, and properly kind of adjust to that environment? So that is a big problem. People spend a lot of time and money on top of that. And the approach or the choices people have, and you've probably heard a lot of talks about this in this conference, is they pretty much end up either completely building the infrastructure and the teams themselves, or maybe for the stopgap purposes, find a company that can provide some pure support from them, but they still have to stand up the entire infrastructure and build the monitor and everything themselves. Or even if there are vendors that provide kind of these monitoring capabilities, you have to stitch everything together to kind of create this management layer around Solr. So that's the core problem that is there. It's recognized by the teams, and that's the problem we kind of intend to solve. So how do we solve it? We've kind of taken an approach saying, we are obviously a Solr as a service. We are going to build a software and services that essentially would help companies, manage and deploy this entire, headache that they have, and then so that they can actually focus their time and energy in building new applications, in building, innovating with their product teams, right? And building on things that are more strategic to their organizations, as opposed to spending a lot of time in building expertise, training people, training operations folks, and then spending time on managing their infrastructure. So we offer 3 products. We have 3 products that are delivered as a service. We have a cloud manager that puts you in control to actually deploy multiple deployments, create cloning from one data center to another data center, very easy to use interface to select, saying, hey, I want to do a backup of my infrastructure. I want to do a scheduled backup. I want to do a one-time backup. I want to have all the logs that are spread out across all the servers, automatically aggregate them into a way that can be easily accessible. And then, really focusing your time being focused on, really controlling and ensuring that you have visibility across all your deployments, and spending time working on more fun stuff, that is, building new algorithms, building new features, improving your search experience, as opposed to managing that. We've integrated Pulse. We have a product called Pulse that actually provides you comprehensive Solr monitoring. And then we have analytics, which gives you end-user behavior analytics. So anything underneath the hood from a development perspective, all the plumbing that needs to go to kind of run your Solr infrastructure is pretty much, we package that as a product and serve it to our customers. So, coming from a top level down to a bottom level down, right? How do we do that for our customers? And we have customers kind of across the globe, right? I mean, we have customers in 3 continents that actually utilize our services to, deploy and manage Solr. What we do is and again, a unique challenge or a unique problem for us that typically a lot of companies develop these Solr as a service offerings within their enterprise, and then they're more focused around kind of providing this capability within their enterprise. A unique challenge for us is our customer base is very diverse, right? So we have customers in life sciences, which are completely separate from customers in e-commerce, which are completely separate from customers in bio, some kind of a other field. They have financial sector customers. So we have to kind of cater to all this variety of customers. Plus, they have obviously different needs and different requirements around scalability, both on the data side of things, both on the traffic side of things. And then when it comes to compliance and security, what our customers ask us from a software perspective is not only be a pure hosted search environment, but then they want our software to actually help orchestrate and manage the entire clusters within their cloud relationships, right? So if they have an AWS account that they're comfortable with, all their data is there, they want us to orchestrate the entire infrastructure within their AWS account. So that's kind of the unique challenge that's presented to us as compared to other companies who try to do search as a service or Solr as a service within their enterprises or within their companies. So from an architecture perspective, this is kind of a slide I've put together. What we have is, we have our software service that is delivered as a service. We've made a choice to kind of go with Amazon Web Services. Our entire software package kind of resides in Amazon Web Services. We have really 3 engines that correlate to, in a conceptual level, 3 product suites we have. We have an orchestration engine. We have a monitoring engine, and we have an analytics engine. And then what we allow our customers to do is, pretty much depending upon the cloud, this is kind of our infrastructure where, let's say they're on 3 different cloud environments. We have a customer A, customer B, customer C, and it seems like there's 2 customer Cs, so customer B, customer C, customer C. And then what it is this is kind of a way it works is each and every customer, there can be multiple customers within a particular account, and they're obviously customers that are spread across multiple cloud environments. That's kind of the high-level architecture we have, and then we allow obviously them to spin up or make the deployment available across any region or across the world. They can choose the cloud relationship, theirs or ours. So all that kind of stuff is something we have to manage. But once you go kind of one level down, the way we ensure that all our customers, and again, one of the challenges we have, or some things that our customer want is, we don't do kind of shared clusters or shared environment, right? So for us, each and every deployment and each and every customer that works with us have to be in, kind of isolated and within their own environment. So our customers don't like the fact that in a network that they're running, other customers also running it in the same kind of a network or a subnet. So for this, what we do behind the scenes is all of our customer deployments, that fall into kind of a hosted section are contained within a virtual private cloud, right? So we have a virtual private cloud that contains, that is a container of all the deployments. Then each and every deployment that we create within a particular customer account is actually separated by subnets. So we have different subnets that are isolated, from each other, and all the deployments or all the nodes that you create in a particular deployment are actually within their own subnet. So when you start up a Solr cluster using search stacks, everything gets built up from the ground. All the configuration and everything happens through the automated process. We set up the load balancers. We ensure all the Zookeeper ensemble, the whole Zookeeper ensemble is set up. The Solr clusters are set up in a cloud environment, and load balancers are set up in a way that it provides high availability to our end customers. So that's kind of a way we expose or we ensure that these deployments are properly segregated. And then we have kind of the native cloud-based support for encryption in case of some cloud environments. So customers can ensure that their disks are encrypted. Customers can ensure that security is available at a REST level, at a storage level, as well as at an authentication and authorization level. So that's kind of that stuff that we do from top to bottom around the cloud environment. So what this allows us to do is ensures that whenever there are 2 kind of deployments, and then there is network traffic that's kind of going into these traffics, we're not kind of cross talking across these two different customers, and every customer's Solr deployments are actually talking to one another, and the performance is not getting degraded because of the network traffic. One of the interesting kind of things about the capabilities that we offer is we actually allow cloning. A lot of the use cases that we see when people are going to the cloud and they're actively working on their environment, things are rapidly changing these days. A lot of time what happens is you're running in a production deployment, you're doing new releases all the time, and you're running in like a development environment, you're running in a QA environment, you have a cluster that is set up for staging, you have a cluster that's set up for production. We make it very simple for customers to actually allow to take one deployment and then replicate that deployment into another deployment, or even upgrade that deployment from what they have to a more kind of a powerful machine perspective or disk perspective or all that kind of stuff. So real life use cases on that is, suddenly you have a bug in production. What do? Right? I mean, you can go and start changing things in production, but sometimes it's very hard to replicate that in a separated, isolated environment because you have to have the same data, you have to have the same same kind of an environment that's exactly there. So one of the interesting things that we provide is pretty much allow customers to say, hey, I'm going to take this deployment and I'm going to clone it. And what cloning does internally is it takes the exact snapshot of your existing deployment and creates another deployment that is completely independent of that deployment, but ensures that all the configuration files, all the data, everything is replicated exactly the same, so that you can independently start working on that deployment for doing any triages or anything. So you can think about this as a very easy way for people to sometimes copy or make a snapshot of a deployment from one data center to another data center, take it from one region to another region, or do kind of a backup or a replication of an existing system, and then start their testing. And as the slide's depicting, we can do within a particular region, or we can do across regions. So that's something available within our environment. That's kind of the whole kind of cloud automation. We kind of make it really simple. You don't have to do it yourself. A lot of time that does it, we kind of do it. Then we have the next challenge, and typically when you're managing a search infrastructure, is around monitoring, right? So what we do for monitoring is we have probably around hundreds and hundreds of now servers running across the entire world that needs to be managed. Our team needs to manage them, and they need to have a complete view of what they're looking into. But then what we have a challenge around is our customers also need the same view from their perspective. So our dashboard, what it does is, what we've done internally is every cloud deployment that we have out there, every deployment that's been managed by CertStacks or managed by our software, we've created GMX agents that we've developed internally that gets deployed on each and every node that we deploy using Solr. We deploy using CertStacks, and those agents periodically start sending data to our tracking API. So some customers want the periodicity to be around 20 milliseconds or 20 seconds. Some customers want 1 minute. Some customers want 5 minutes. Depending upon how these varieties are there, each and every agent starts sending the data to our tracking API. Our tracking API then ensures that all that raw data is actually collected into, behind the scenes, we have an array of MongoDB clusters that actually store all that data that's coming in live from the agents and storing it in the clusters. And then we have, obviously, a dashboard that allows you to kind of aggregate that entire data into pretty graphs and allow you to customize alerts and set alerts based on your needs or thresholds or heartbeats. And then we have behind the scene an alerting service that is kind of a microservice that runs on multiple clusters that actually take all those alerts and stuff that you've done, starts processing all the data, and is able to send notifications that you've used, that you've customized in your environment, right? So it sends you disk space notifications, resource utilizations, heartbeats, dashboards, anything that you kind of have configured in your environment, that's kind of stored here. And and that's kind of what we do. So this allows us to really kind of create an automation layer around proactively monitoring each and every deployment, every node that's out there, and making sure the proper alerts are going back to our customers, and and then we are taking kind of an active approach and making sure that's working properly. Apart from this thing, we also have internally Zabbix that is actually deployed. The agents are deployed on each and every deployment in a cluster that is used. And we use and Zabbix is actually not exposed to our end customers, but it's primarily used for our own, our support team that actually, there are certain things in Zabbix that they take a look at, right? And so we use a combination of both our own, search analytics and Zabbix to kind of monitor these two things and keep a track of kind of what's going on behind the scenes. Any questions there? And then, we have the last piece that on the infrastructure piece is around the, around the analytics aspect of it, right? So we have we have an analytics engine that allows you to track. We have APIs that you can put it into your web application. We have APIs that you can put it into your mobile applications. And what they do is they start, they are pretty much native application level APIs that start to collect all the user interactions that are going on within a particular application. So they record searches that are happening. They record click streams that are happening. They record any kind of rewrites and all that kind of stuff that is happening, and then start to send out to our collector API. So behind the scenes, we have an API that's always listening to these, to these kind of events that are being generated on each and every application that you've created. And these events are then aggregated, into a storage, again, Mongo, combination of a Mongo and S3, where we store all these events. And then we have a pipeline service, which is actually running on top of, MapReduce or EMR, and pretty much do aggregation of all the things that we need. So there are some complex things saying, hey, I want to know the top searches. What are the top searches? I want to know what are the top no result searches. I want to know, query level detail around, how much click-through rate is for these kind of searches. I want to find out, what is my worst performing search that is happening, at any given particular time, day and time, is all driven by, this kind of a backend infrastructure and a dashboard that allows you to slice and dice that information and helps you kind of, look at that data and take that data and, give it back to your product teams or development teams to actually make it more interesting for you, right? And then improving the search. So kind of utilizing analytics to feed back into your kind of search to improve, your relevancy or ranking aspect of it. So that's kind of, behind the scenes what's happening. What I'd like to do is I'd like to actually show a little bit of a demo of kind of how we do things here. So let me blow it up a little bit. So this is our kind of dashboard, right? So every customer, when they create an account with SearchStax, they kind of go into the dashboard. So this is our dashboard that allows you to really, look at all the deployments that are available across the board within your account, right? So you can have multiple accounts, but you can have multiple deployments within your particular account. So typically when you're working, in a development or operation environment, you have development environment, you have production environment, you have demo, some demo environments, you have staging environments, you have QA. So this is a dashboard that allows you to pretty much look at all the deployments that you have running. It kind of will tell you, where these deployments are, which cloud environment are these deployments running, what version of Solr are they running, and what's the current status of that as a whole deployment, right? So creating a deployment with SearchStax is actually fairly straightforward. All you need to do is, pretty much create a deployment name, and I'm going to give, you've seen Solr. Let's create that as a deployment name. I'm going to select, you can select Azure, you can select web services, from our portal. If let's say I select web services, you can select which region I want to run this particular deployment on. Let's say I select I want to run on an Oregon region. I want a 3-node cluster that are standard kind of plans. And what kind of Solr version do you want to run on in one of these environments? and then whether you want standalone zookeepers or not. So, and we have some more kind of detailed configuration there depending upon where the customers are running, because some of the customers we work with, they actually want the load balancing process from a security perspective to be handled by a separate team, so you can actually create deployments without the load balancers, and then the load balancer team can actually point to the auto-scaling groups within the environment, so that they can automatically detect any machine that's coming up in that auto-scaling group and fix that issue. So here what we'll do is, behind the scenes, what's doing is actually going and configuring all the servers, making sure all the software is installed. This typically takes about 15 to 20 minutes of time to come up and running. But then once it's up and running, you can pretty much go in and and kind of look at the details of a particular deployment. So this is a single node deployment that I have, but this is a 4-node deployment that is running in a clustered mode. What we give you on a particular deployment is a load balancer URL. So one of the unique things about CertStacks is we don't create some kind of an API layer on top of Solr. So what we give you is, we give you Solr as is, as if you were using it or managing it yourself, but we kind of make sure that all the things that are happening behind the scenes. So there's no kind of API lock-in or anything around that. And we have the zookeeper ensemble and everything on top of that. So what you can do is, as you can see in this case, you have the ability to kind of restart your Solr nodes. You have the ability to add, New Relic. If your company uses New Relic, you can integrate with New Relic. Tomorrow, if you want to add a couple of nodes, you can pretty much say, hey, you know what? I anticipate a traffic going up in the next 2 months or so, or tomorrow. You can pretty much add a couple of more nodes and click add, and it automatically configures those nodes into your existing cluster and complete that process. Just kind of, this is a user interface that allows you to create a one-time backup, set up periodic backups. You have access to all the logs, from a single coherent dashboard. We also have real-time log streaming. So if your developer wants to look at real-time logs, you have real-time logs. And then, all the security stuff, is easily available throughout the cluster. And then the analytics stuff that we were talking about, you have all the analytics that are there from a search and indexing perspective available through the dashboard. And then on any of these metrics, you can actually create any alerts that you want on any particular threshold, saying, hey, whenever this instance goes, my cache hit ratio goes below 0.2%, send me an alert, and then don't send me alert after you've sent 3 alerts or anything like that. All that kind of stuff is configurable, and you can send it to an email. We also integrate with PagerDuty, where you can do your escalations and notification escalations and everything within their tool, and we can seamlessly integrate with their environment. And if you don't want to do something like that, we have incident management availability through CertStacks. And then finally, obviously the analytics dashboard is available from a dashboard perspective, and then you can expose this through an API and have your team kind of slice and dice data the way you want it. For compliance purposes, we have audit logging that is available within CertStacks, so that you know exactly which user has done which operation through your Solr deployment, and whether a node has been added, something has been changed in your existing deployment. So from a compliance perspective, you have an audit log. You have an ability to add multiple users that can actually access this dashboard and assign roles to those users, so that a particular user is only able to do certain actions within the dashboard. And lastly, we expose availability, SLAs. So for a lot of our customers, SLA is pretty important. So what we do is we have availability graphs exposed within our dashboard that allows them to keep it up to date as to what kind of an uptime availability do they have for this month or last month or the entire historic data. And obviously, if we are meeting or beating certain SLAs, we have kind of warranties that are baked into our agreements with our customers. So that's that kind of really at the end what it does is makes the life of So what this entire infrastructure that we've built, right? It enables our customers to focus their energies, right, into their application as opposed to worrying about infrastructure. Don't spend time on things that are low value for your organization. Spend time on things that are high value for the organization. be in control, right? With search stacks, you're more in control, have visibility into your setup, and a peace of mind because we offer SLA-backed guarantees, and then standardize and automate the entire Solr usage within an organization, so that you're not multiple departments within an organization aren't kind of running Solr in a different one or different way, and they're managing it very consistently. Compliance is happening at the one place, and then each and every deployment is pretty much kind of consistent across each other. And that's that's pretty much it. What I had. And obviously, we're hiring. So if you're looking for a job, both on the engineering side or marketing side, feel free to reach out to us. You can send us an email at jobs@measuredsearch.com. It doesn't matter. We are a pretty global team. We are a pretty remote organization. So wherever you are in the world, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to talk. That's it. Thank you.